what should I do? And then I finally come to the conclusion.
What inspired you to write this book? I mean, what made you decide that it was time that you needed to get help?
Well, when you got these stories dancing around in your head for years, you know, stories from, especially on this one book we're talking about, A Boy Named Jinx, yeah. And I had these stories just dancing, bopping around in my head for years, and I don't know, every once in a while I tell somebody, you know, a story, and they'd seem enlightened with it and everything, and I don't know, I felt like maybe I need to write these down and kind of get them out of my head, you know, basically for writing the book.
Well, that's actually very inspiring, I believe, because I read the book and I found it both funny, sad, but you know, once I started reading it, I didn't want to stop till I was finished.
Well, you know, I've heard the same thing from others before too, but yeah, the book is basically about me growing up in a horrifying experience, you know, as a child. And some of these bad experiences just kept dancing around in my head for years, and my performance in life, how I was living, was not right. So I figured before I get into a bunch of mischief and end up serving a lot of time and everything, I figured that I need to go ahead and sign myself in and get some help, you know.
Well, it's a good thing that you have the mentality to do that, and I can say that I appreciate the book. I mean, just the fact that you were able to realize where you were at in life, and then share it with people. That's awesome.
Well, I didn't really know at the time that it was really going to make a huge life change in my life like it did, but I knew that I needed to do something. When I signed myself in, I didn't know if they'd ever release me or what, and I really got out quicker than I even realized. But also when I did finally start writing the book, many years later, when I finally started writing the book, with the story still dancing around in my head and everything, that it seems like it helped me bury a little bit more. I mean, there was more suppression that I had pushed away. When you have a horrifying childhood, there's a lot that you push away because you want to fit into the world and be normal. Everybody kind of wants to be normal, even a serial killer, I'm sure. But not to bring that subject up. But when I started getting help to write the book and writing the book, it seems like there was more that come up, and we got down on paper and everything to help build the book and everything to where we had something to edit.
Well, I think you did a great job on that. So, how many other books have you written?
Well, you know, after we wrote that one, and I had a chance to kind of start going through it and editing it, and then finding somebody who could help me edit and everything, I was surprised that it turned out so well, and this being my first book. I mean, only a dyslexic person would write their biography first before they'd write any other books. But anyhow, that I figured, you know, if I may have a gift that I didn't even realize for writing, and maybe even writing other books. So, yeah, I continued on to write other books. I wrote another one called The Adventures of Todd and Susie, and just to see, it's a children's book, just to see where it would go.
Well, that's a nice contrast from one thing to the other, and coming from someone who had a troubled childhood to be able to write a children's book, I think that's pretty amazing.
Well, let me catch you right there, Robert. I mean, some thoughts just jumped up in my head. And another thing, too, about Todd and Susie, what makes it so special, when I was writing that book, I was living the characters. And it gave me an opportunity to kind of be that child in that book. So basically, that's me and my sister in that book, going on these journeys in time and visiting the famous place, the people that died. It's in history now. But yeah, I really enjoyed. It gave me an opportunity to be that child, and have that childhood by writing that book.
Yeah, that's really, I like that. That basically gave you the opportunity to get lost in your own thoughts and put yourself where you want it to be at the time.
I agree, Robert. That's the biggest thing about writing. Now with 7 books behind me, that is what I really marvelize in. You can go places in your mind. It's just like a dream that some of us dream at night, and it just seems so real. It's so lifelike. That's the same way as writing. You become to be that character. You're just like an actor. You become to be that role for that hour, that whatever time span it is,
Exactly, yes.
And that's something I've really enjoyed about writing, because I can go places just right here in my own room, just writing. I mean, I can go around the world as long as I've got the information in my head of what really took place at that moment, and the psychology that would kind of back it up to make it appear to be real.
So I guess it would be safe to say that I'm sorry. Just wanting to get lost, maybe in dreamland, maybe is part of what inspires you to write.
That gives me a new opportunity to start a new book. It really does. I mean, I have been a serial killer in one book. I've been a child and going on an adventure with my sister in another book. Gosh, let me think for a minute. What else did I write? Shoot, I don't know.
The mask they wear.
The mask they wear. Yeah, I really didn't feel... When I was writing that one, that was the hardest one that I've ever wrote, because it's about young women going through a situation that's really, really more horrifying than what I went through. And first of all, I've never been a female to feel that. And number 2, I've never felt that much of a horrifying feeling. And I didn't really enjoy writing that book, but I knew the word needed to be out there. People need to know the real world of human trafficking and stuff that's going on. And so I mean, I was unfortunate to find some real stories, and I could use those and then add the psychology to it, the basics. If A happens, then we know before we can get to C, there's got to be a B, and that's part of psychology, is branching these things together. But yeah, that a lot of that is just exploiting and letting the world know that is still going on to this day.
Yeah, that's that would be a hard one to write. I can understand that, and it's a sad fact that is still going on today. And I admire you for having the courage to, go into that place and make it raise an awareness to that, because a lot of people don't like to touch those kind of subjects.
And that's why it goes on so freely today, because everybody likes to enjoy their hamburgers and their Cokes and their pizza and go home to a happy family, and that's the way life should be. But the real world out there in the dark shadows is human trafficking and drugs and things like that's going on. And the more we bring this out and make it aware to people, then they know what to look for in the signs and stuff in their own neighborhood that could be part of human trafficking or whatever.
Exactly. I pray that your book opens many eyes to what's really going on. I know it did mine.
Now there's another one that of course I know you haven't read it yet, but maybe on our next interview you have by then, that I enjoyed writing too. But it's called Flat Rock, and it's basically about these spirits that it's kind of got some true history to it too. They talk about the Tears of Trail, or the Trail of Tears, I think is how it's worded. And if you Google it, you'll find it. It's some reality there. And the sad thing is, a lot of the Indians that was uprooted, they died on that trail. Anyhow, in the book, I kind of wanted to do a Stephen King kind of copycat thing. Shame on me, right? But we all love Pet Sematary and a few of them that he wrote.
Right.
And so I decided, these spirits can live again. So I brought them back, and they settled down next to an RV park, and they do sacrifice on a blood red moon, and it's a real bloody battle going on. It's a real good little book that I'll hand you a copy after the interview and let you kind of go over it, and maybe we'll go over it some next time.
Well, that sounds very interesting, and that's a sad but true story. It's a shame the way that the Indians were treated and died, and I'm sure I will enjoy that one as well. I look forward to it.
Well, Robert, it looks like our time has about ran out. I've enjoyed having you here in the studio. Viewing the video and giving us a like or subscribing helps us to continue to want to try to bring a little bit of entertainment. Don't you agree? Thanks, buddy. See you later.